some would say shalom, which I think means hello. And I guess it means goodbye too. Same word, I think. I'm not sure. The covenant relationship between the Father and his people, I think everyone knows, is likened to a marriage. And when you picture that, you don't picture something evil, wrathful, like picturing man's wrath, sinful kind of wrath. You don't picture love out of fear of hatred or torture. You know what I'm saying? The obedience out of fear of being tortured is not something you'll get from picturing a marriage. And if it was like that, wouldn't that be pretty evil? Just picture a couple and one of them's telling them to do something, or else I'll torture the living crap out of you with no end, if it was possible. With us, it's not even possible to torture someone forever. So why on earth are people fascinated by this? Why on earth do so many not even want to look into it? Nothing doesn't even come up to their mind. Let me at least look into this. This can't be true. And maybe something does pop up in their mind, or they've had those thoughts before, but then, what I think happens is, since the majority believe that, and since human nature is naturally prideful, it's a prideful teaching. I'm not burning forever, and you're burning forever. I can't think of a more prideful teaching than that. Besides, combined with free will, those two go hand in hand. Free will and being tortured with no end are the most prideful doctrines that I can think of. If you got something more prideful, put it in the comment, let me know. And I'll likely be able to deconstruct it and show you it's not more prideful than those two things. We're talking about forever and ever and beyond here. That's why it's extremely prideful. There's no end to the pride. Most people don't actually believe in favor or the gift of faith. They don't actually believe that. So it's really disappointing that they don't. They just have some kind of fake faith in religion. They trust their system. They trust that they're better than everyone, even though they like to teach the whole world to break his commandments. Pretty interesting. The people that scream hell the most are probably some of the most in the world breaking his commandments and being hypocritical. Maybe they're going to that hell that they speak of. Maybe that's what they're going to get, something like that. Whatever they thought of the Father, whatever they taught people, maybe they're going to get something back on their heads like that, huh? Not that that's actually going to be literal torture with flames, but you know what I mean. The judgment might put them in a place of whatever they taught, they'll receive back. I think that would be a fair judgment. But it's extremely hypocritical to me. That's how it's pretty hypocritical to teach all the things we're supposed to do, but the Creator doesn't do them himself. He does the opposite. I don't know where there's any scriptural examples of him doing the perfect opposite of what we're supposed to do. But that's what they imply and teach. The biggest example is just simply love your enemies, for example. What on earth is torturing your enemies have to do with loving your enemies? Nothing. If you do that, you're considered evil. You're considered an abomination. You know, to our Creator, you're considered an abomination. And if you don't have just weight and scales, that's an abomination, it says, Proverbs 11:1. You're an abomination if you don't have just scales. So I guess he's going to have unjust scales with no end. The teaching needs to stop. That's not the gospel. That's not the good news. That you're born into a fire with no end unless you do something. Unless you believe, in this case for most people, it's just a 7-second sinner prayer and then you're done. Then you won't burn forever and everyone else will burn forever. Even if an atheist was more moral than a Christian all their life, but the Christian supposedly had faith, they're not going to burn forever, you know. Crazy nonsense. But the other one who was more moral will burn forever with no end. What a prideful doctrine. You know, they might want to look at those words. My words are spirit, which means my words are not literal. My words are not carnal. They don't come from the flesh. They don't have a natural understanding. And all his words were spirit, and all his words were through parables. The people who teach this must cut off their hands when they sin. The people who teach an everlasting fire, blazing inferno, must pluck out their eyeballs, or else they'll be found hypocritical on Judgment Day. And hypocrites don't get to inherit the kingdom, do they? So here we are. We're proving that not a single Christian that teaches this teaching of burning forever will inherit the kingdom unless they also start obeying all those commands, because then they're hypocritical. If I don't see eyeballs being plucked out and hands cut off and souls destroyed, you know, jumping off of bridges, shooting yourself, if I don't see that going on, then they're hypocrites. Hypocrites don't inherit the kingdom. But nobody brings this up, hardly, you know. They don't get into the details, the finer things, some of these serious things. They're loose. A hypocrite is not good. That's sin. That's an abomination to be a hypocrite. So every single person that teaches everlasting flames is a hypocrite unless they do these physical things themselves, literally. Because they're not being the example that they're supposed to. They're not following those words literally for themselves, but they're applying it to the whole world, you know, except for themselves. What is it that someone can't get? He who destroys his soul shall find life. He who finds his soul, his life, that's the Greek word for soul, shall be apolumi, destroying it. And aren't we told that those who gain the whole world, they lose their soul, destroy their soul? What profit, what benefit? So how come they're never consistent? How come they're never consistent with any kind of teaching on this? How come they don't destroy their own souls the way that the Father's going to destroy souls? How come they don't put gasoline on themselves and burn themselves? It's the only way to life. The only way to life is if you destroy your soul, lose your life, as I call that the weak translations that like to hide the meaning, the spiritual meaning. The Concordant is one of them that I know of that translates it properly. It should be translated like that. It's the exact same Greek word, destroy your life, your soul. That's the exact same Greek word used when the Father will destroy souls in Gehenna. Same Greek word, exactly identical. But then they translate it as lose there instead of destroy. So when you're consistent, and you have every right to translate it as such, it doesn't make the meaning muddy or anything like that. He who destroys his soul, my words are spirit, they're not literal anyways, he said. Flesh profits nothing. Your carnal, natural understanding has no benefit or value to my words. So once again, nobody's ever been able to answer or counter it. I've never seen one thing ever. Just silence. Why aren't you destroying your soul? The same way the Father will destroy souls. Why aren't you doing that to yourself? Because that's the only way to life. Only way to life. That's a command. You got to destroy your soul. He who destroys his soul shall find his soul, his life. And if you don't, then the Father is able to destroy souls in Gehenna. Yeah, he's able. Nothing's going to stop him from accomplishing his will, which is all people going through Messiah. Every knee, every tongue confessing and bowing, because he created the whole creation through Messiah, for him, through him. They butcher this meaning. Trinitarians absolutely butcher it. They absolutely take away 100% the whole purpose of creation is he created all things through him and for him. Through, it's got to go through. All creation has got to go through him. That's why it was created. Yeah, that's the true teaching. But they just simply say, my Jesus was up there pre-existing and all things were created literally by him, when that word by means through. But you might want to read a translation that's not 700 years old and look up the word and look how it's translated elsewhere, but they don't do this. They don't care. All things made through him, for him, through him, to the Father's glory, esteem. It will be to his glory that every knee bows, every tongue confesses. It won't be to some kind of, some kind of monstrous, satanic, burning people in literal fire with no end. I don't know how that would glorify anyone. If you see someone in trouble, then if you see them, they're your neighbor. They're close to you. And you just stand by. Well, you're committing sin by not helping, by not doing what's right. So everyone in this heaven will stand by forever with no end while people beg and scream and are tortured and ask for mercy and help. They'll stand by and do nothing, because according to the literal parable, of which there's no such thing, of the rich man and Lazarus, you will be able to see people, and some people will get a dropper out and put a drop of water to mock them, and this drop is going to vaporize before it even hits their tongue, so they will be able to see them. That's their teaching. You got to be consistent. If they use that parable and teach it literally and evilly like that, then you also will be able to see them from heaven, which means that would make them the most evil, violent, hypocritical people in existence, worse than those people burning down there or wherever they're burning, worse than them, because they stand by and mock and watch and laugh and don't do anything. And those people will be jumping up and down. His mercy endures forever. His mercy endures forever. They're screaming and begging for mercy, and they're saying, your word says his mercy endures forever. And everybody in heaven goes, gotcha. No, it doesn't. You should have listened to the preacher, man. His word says that, but you should have listened to us. His mercy does not endure forever. Crazy world we live in. If somebody's trying to do what's right out of fear, some kind of evil torture fear, do what's right or I'll break your hand off and twist your arm and rip your skin off. If that's why you're doing good, then then you don't know him. Then your love hasn't been perfected. If you still have fear, your love hasn't been perfected. If you still have fear, you still have torment. You still have chastisement. But forget that. Forget that altogether. That's not true, says the church world. Says Constantine and all the devils who blinded the whole entire world with their Egyptian and their Babylonian hell that existed long before Christianity was come to existence in the 300s AD. That didn't exist until then, from Christianity, that is. Nobody was teaching that evil until a bunch of wolves came in. Only hirelings teach that. Only wolves teach that. This kind of evil. And only they continually, daily, weekly, contradict the scriptures and contradict themselves and contradict the Father all the time. Be good to all people. Why? Why? Why does Paul say be good to all? Have peace with everyone to the best of your ability, to as much as you can. Have peace with all people. Be good to everyone. Because that's becoming like the Father. That's becoming be perfect as your heavenly Father is perfect. That's why. That's what we even read. That's what the Messiah says. By doing this, you become like your Father who is in heaven. But then they worship this deity, this God, who does the exact opposite for ever and ever and ever, and his mercy runs out at some, I don't know, imaginary line, some point in time it runs out. He created all creation, knowing in advance, being sovereign. Ultimately, the vessels of dishonor could not do anything no matter what. The people who were destined never to believe and come to a knowledge of truth never were going to come to a knowledge of truth. He created all that knowing that would happen to 98% of all people, 99, whatever, and destined them to burn in a pit with no end. Some kind of black and white, I don't know, dualism, some extreme good and extreme evil. The thing is, this heaven wouldn't be some kind of extreme good. No, it wouldn't. No one would be doing good knowing that untold numbers of trillions are suffering somewhere. While they're rejoicing, other people are suffering beyond imagination. I don't know, how I don't know what the old saints were thinking, but too bad Adam was never warned about this. I guess nobody was warned about this for the first few thousand years, and then the revelation suddenly became more clear when their Jesus spoke more about hell than heaven, which that itself is a stupid lie. Do a simple word search and find out how dumb that is. And then they count the same accounts that are the exact same accounts. If you consider the accounts that are identical, there might be like 5 verses he spoke about Gehenna, and then the other ones are duplicates. But that doesn't prove anything anyways, how many times something is said. They just blindly say what their preacher man told them, and that preacher man said that before them, and they don't even look into it, not even once in their life. They just like to say these phrases that puffs them up and makes them feel powerful and prideful that they're not burning. In the meantime, they're just preaching lies every week. I don't know how these people are going to inherit the kingdom by preaching lies every single week. They're saying everyone's going to burn, but in the meantime, they're lying. I thought all liars have their part in this lake of fire. You can't inherit the kingdom by being a liar the rest of your life. Apparently Preacher Man can. All of them. Every one of them lies. When have they repented for lying? Unlikely that they've ever done that, repented for lying, because they don't believe they are lying. It's like we live in some kind of, I don't know, sci-fi, mythical, fable, unreality. I don't know what you would even call it. It's insane. It's insane to even want to do good to people, but then you also believe that they're going to be tortured for all eternity. Or everlastingly, I guess, because eternal means no beginning, no end. That's the only meaning for eternal. Sorry, Strongs. You don't get to write the definition and contradict words. Eternal never means has a beginning. It only means it has no beginning, and only means it has no end. So when someone says that they're going to suffer for eternity, that means that they've always suffered and always will suffer. There was no beginning to the suffering and there's no end. Can't do that. And I've said it before, eternal life would mean no beginning. There's no such thing as eternal life. Everything has a beginning, therefore it's not eternal. It's a false translation. Who cares about contradictions? Who cares? Then they falsely say that means it runs out. Eternal life runs out. It's not talking about that. It's the quality of life. It's having life in you. If you're a sinner, you don't have this life in you. If you're repenting and you're believing the truth, then you have this life in you. This age-lasting life that's lasting in you as long as you're doing these things. As long as you're believing. And that's the contrast in judgment. If you destroy your soul in this life, you won't have to in the age to come. You won't have to. If you're tested and burned and going through the fiery trials in this life, then you're not going to have to go through that in the age to come, of which the rest will have to go through that second death, that lake of fire, have their part in it. A lake is a body of water. So we got a lake of fire. You got a lake that's on fire. You know, what is that? He's just going to drown people and burn them at the same time? That's just total nonsense. It's symbolic. The water's symbolic. The fire's symbolic. Even the flood is symbolic. Everyone died. Yeah, they died. They died in the baptism, pretty much guaranteeing their salvation at some point in the future, because everyone has to die to who and what they are. They got flooded. They got baptized. They got taken out. They're going to go into judgment. And judgment leads to what? Righteousness. Judgment is his judgment, his correction. It's not going to be something different. He's not going to judge to torture. That's not judging, that's torturing. That's evil. People do that, torture people. You know, if that's the sole purpose, that's the judging, what they call judging. It's actually just torturing. It's not judging. Judging is rightly giving someone a sentence, a right degree of punishment according to what they deserve. That's properly judging. Torturing someone is just torturing someone. That's not judging. Torture is not judgment, period. It can't be called righteous. It can't be called righteous judgment. It can't even be called judgment. Find me a verse where it says torture without end is judgment. You won't find it. Won't find it. Thousands of words. Thousands, and not even a hint that torture is judgment or judgment is torture with no end. Then they go to the most symbolic one of the most symbolic books, and try to hand pick a couple verses here and there to teach their nasty doctrine, when that whole book is signified and symbolic and everything has a meaning behind the symbol. They take it literally. That's how they get there. They take Messiah's words literally, which were symbolic, which were parables, which are spirit. It's the only way they could ever get this teaching is by twisting the true meaning and twisting the words. That's how they get that teaching. He spoke parables so that they don't understand, so that the people not called, that aren't the true, faithful, called and chosen, so that they don't understand, so that there's a contrast between those that do and those that don't. And those that don't understand will absolutely look like total fools in the end. They're going to look like fools, and they're going to have it come back on them. They'll see how foolish it was to say that the Father tortures people with no end. People don't think that's blasphemy. Oh, that's no big deal to be going around saying that and teaching that. We'll see. We'll see about that. I'm pretty confident on this one thing. We'll see if that wasn't blasphemy. You know, because not only does it pervert his justice, his judgment, it perverts the meaning of judgment, and they say it just goes on and on with no end. So therefore it has no redeeming value. There is no value. It's just judging for the sake of judging with no end. It accomplishes nothing except pain and torture. That's some serious blasphemy. And like I always say, if there is a doctrine, it's got to be found consistent in the Old Testament scriptures. Don't even turn to Matthew and beyond. Cut off the New Testament books. Start with Genesis and go through Malachi and show me where people are burned in a resurrection and fire with no end. Show me. It's not in there. In fact, anything even remotely about judgment after this life is extremely scarce. There might be a couple verses, handful, from Genesis to Malachi about what happens after death. Not much in there. I don't even know of a single verse in all of Genesis. Find me one verse in Genesis about a resurrection and then torture after a resurrection. Nothing. What about Exodus? Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy? Where is it? Where's the specific teaching I'm looking for that they all teach? Where people are resurrected after they die and then they're tortured with real fire after this resurrection. Show me that order and process in the Old Testament anywhere. It doesn't exist. Like I've said before, they got one verse in Daniel. See, everlasting punishment, or the unrighteous will go into everlasting shame and contempt. Okay, they got some kind of verse that seems like judgment goes on with no end. And then you prove to them that word doesn't mean everlasting, and never can, never will, never does, never has meant something with no end. Otherwise, you have massive contradictions. The old covenant was not everlasting, was it? No, it wasn't. There was a better covenant. A covenant where he writes the law in your hearts so that you don't forget, so you don't forget to do what's right. That's the better covenant. So the old covenant wasn't everlasting, because then we would have the same covenant. We would still be sacrificing animals, and most of us would be, the law wouldn't be written in our hearts, which actually for most people that still is true. But for those that do believe, it's a better covenant, So we're not sacrificing animals anymore for sins constantly, because that was never able to blot out or remove sins completely, Otherwise, if it could, why keep sacrificing, like Hebrews says? It says that was everlasting. It says Aaron's priesthood was everlasting. No, it wasn't. That's not even Aaron's priesthood now. It's over. He took over the type was Melchizedek. Melchizedek. That's the priesthood that was a type of what Messiah would come from. Moses didn't even say anything about his priesthood or Aaron's priesthood concerning Messiah, because it would never be through that priesthood. It's through the order of Melchizedek. So therefore, Aaron's priesthood, that specific priesthood where they sacrifice animals and atone for sins like this, was not everlasting. People use those verses to say, oh, this is why we should still do these things. Well, they wrongly say that because of that word. That means you also should be sacrificing animals. How come they never bring that up? Well, then they say it got changed. Well, we know, and they say, right, New Covenant, Messiah came, that changed. Yeah, but it said it was everlasting. Well, can't you get 2 and 2? That means it wasn't everlasting if something changed or ended. Age lasting. And it lasts, in this case, these things. The law, the commandments, are age lasting also. And they last until further notice, until someone says, the Creator specifically says, they no longer apply. And do we have anywhere in Scripture where they say that they're overthrown and no longer apply? No. No, so those age-lasting things are still lasting. In this case, until the heavens and earth vanish. Until the heavens and earth vanish. It's easier for the heaven and earth to disappear than for the law to vanish. So that's how we know that it's still age-lasting. It's still going on. It's still truth. But people don't do any studies on this. They don't take any time to look into these contradictions. That somewhere there's an example in the law in Torah where the servant is a slave to this master, a specific master, forever. Something about, I forget what he does. I forget the details, but he does something, and if he does that, then he's a slave to the master forever. Well, that's the same word, olam olam, that they use for everlasting punishment. So that means that person will be a slave in the resurrection and beyond, and forever and ever and ever with no end. He's going to be a slave to that master. Everyone knows that's dumb. That's not true. In this case, forever was the end of his life. That's all. And we even have a teaching somewhere, when someone dies, then the covenant, the thing, it's over. You're not bound to it anymore if you're dead. So that's just one example where forever was a few years, a couple decades, few years, the life of a man. And there's more examples where forever is the life of a man, and other examples where they're a long period of time. But in no case does it ever mean no end. If it did, then Daniel wouldn't have to say concerning the kingdom, it's going to be an everlasting kingdom that will not be destroyed and shall have no end. Two different ways to say it's not going to go away. If everlasting meant everlasting, he could have just finished there and everyone would know that, look, it's everlasting. It's not going to have an end. That's obvious and clear. We all know that, everlasting. But no, right after that, it says it will not be destroyed and it shall have no end. It's because the kingdom is age abiding, age lasting. But now he needs to qualify the terms, the meaning. It's a period of time. Okay, we understand that. But how long? It could be a long time, but what if it still ends? Oh, don't worry. It's an age-lasting kingdom which will not be destroyed and shall have no end. Okay, now I get it. It's an age-lasting kingdom that has no end. Now it's forever. When you say there's no end to it, then it becomes forever, which is what you would have to do with everlasting shame and contempt. If it said it shall have no end, then that teaching would be true. Then they would be teaching truth. But that's not the truth. Because the word means age lasting. It's a specific period of time, whether long or short. It's pretty impossible for the Father to be all in all if he's only all in very few. I don't know how they do that. They have to say all there means very few. That's the only way. It's the only way they could say that. The all there refers to very, very few. 1%, 0.5%, throughout all generations. 99% is the many. The all will never be all. You know, it's just, he's going to be all in very few. He's going to be nothing in almost all, most all. He's going to be nothing in torture to most all. That's the picture they paint of our loving Creator, who is love. That's the picture they paint. And love has no end, and love never gives up. Love never fails. That's one way to say forever. It never fails. Therefore, it goes on. If something never fails or does not fail, it's an absolute strong negative, that word. Does not fail, never fails. Then love keeps going. Love doesn't torture. Love doesn't do cruel. Love doesn't do evil. Maybe they should read those verses on what love doesn't do. Love is not brutal. Love is not envious. Love is not all these bad things, right? And love never fails. The Father will fail. He'll be the greatest failure that there ever was. And this devil comes out on top. Sounds like devil worship to me. Praising the devil, that he comes out on top. And then apparently the grave, hell, which is the grave, it's not some body of fire. The word there is Hades, the grave. That's what that means. The grave and death will be tossed into the lake of fire. It says this is a place of torture. I guess the grave, whatever that is, it's not a real thing, abstract concept, whatever you want to call it. Death itself and the grave will be tortured forever. Give me a break. It means all evil is being destroyed. It's another way of saying death is being conquered. The last enemy, death, is to be destroyed. Yeah, throw it in the lake of fire. It's no good. It's going to be destroyed. The wicked are going to be destroyed. But guess what? The few chosen, the wicked in them is being destroyed right now. The wicked are being destroyed. Yeah, that's scriptural. That's a fact. That's happening now to the few chosen. Their souls are being destroyed. And if you don't believe that's what the word lose means, that's the same Greek word and just somewhere else that he says, a few verses up or down, I can't remember. Father destroys all souls in Gehenna. That's the same Greek word used, lose, destroy. Those who destroy their souls. See, they're being destroyed. The wicked is being destroyed in them, their soul, their old man. Death, right? Because in Adam all die, so that's death to be the old man. Death, the old man, the wicked, is being destroyed in the lake of fire. What don't they get? And no one's on fire screaming, oh, I'm burning. It's not happening to the few chosen now. But the fire is real. It's spiritual. We're destroying the evil. He's doing that in us. Destroying the wicked, destroying all that's foul. All of this so that you can become like him. And then he just tortures people in some fire, some carnal thing not even a man would do. and just burns them with no end. Wow, what a spiritual, wise God. What a wise and I don't know, whatever they say. Wow, that's really wise. Their Trinity deity. That's why he gives them over to the Trinity, because the Father doesn't do any such thing. That's evil nonsense. He made it that way. He made it a trap to be evil in this world. That those who don't understand the spiritual words and parables will teach absolute evil. He made it like that. I know, I wish he didn't sometimes. I wish that if you didn't misunderstand something, that it wouldn't automatically be like the most nastiest evil doctrine that there ever was or will be. But that's what it is. If you don't understand this, a few verses, you end up with the most damnable doctrine that there ever is or could be. Nothing greater than that. Is that why you want to do good? Is that why you believe? Because you got torture in the back of your mind that he's going to torture you with no end? That's why you do good? Be honest. Who's actually doing that? Who's got that kind of fear? That's why they do good. That's why they want to believe and do what's right. Because they're genuinely worried they're going to be tortured in a fire forever with no end. No one. Because the wicked don't have any fear in their eyes of him. So you have to remember that the people that teach this, most of these people, they don't have any fear in their eyes. So they don't. They teach the most fearful, nasty doctrine that there is, but they don't actually fear any of it themselves. Pretty amazing, the hypocrisy. I wish it was just done with and over with, man. Just burn it all up already. Burn this nastiness out of humanity. This evil. But he hid himself on purpose. I could see that. He did it on purpose. He hid what he really has in mind for all humanity, his intentions. It's in there. Those who seek the truth will find it, and it will set them free from these crazy, insane lies. It'll set them free from that evil Dante's Inferno fear, not a proper fear for who he is, proper fear for his righteous judgments, but no. It sets you free from the evil kind of fear that never perfects that will never perfect anyone as long as they have that in them. And we're even taught, and Paul understands it. He gets it. Read Romans 8 and 9. He understands the sovereignty, the sovereign will of the Father, that the creation did not willingly subject itself to this. It wasn't its choice. But the Father did this willingly, subjecting it to futility. We didn't do this willingly. That's what it says. He understands the sovereignty of the Father. Christians don't understand that. They don't believe that. They believe in their free will and that they can actually change their destiny and they can do everything freely to the left or right, with just freely, no cause. That's what they say. That's what they teach. Choose him, or else burn, How ironic that none of them who supposedly choose him actually chose him, but they chose delusions. Amazing. Amazing. They worship idols. They worship no gods that have no power, that are idols and demons, and they don't do anything. They're just idols in their heart. And then we're looked at as full-blown heretics that say that that's evil. Why? How on earth could someone call someone that doesn't believe in that and can prove it with the scriptures? And they just know the Father. They know that's not who he is, that that's in total insanity and evil, because they have his spirit and could say such things with absolute authority. that it wouldn't even remotely cross my mind to torture someone with a needle, let alone burn them with no end, you know? But these people don't have the Spirit of the Father in them, do they? Someone who can say that, I don't think they can have the Spirit of the Father in them. Maybe they can falsely believe it. They don't really believe it for a time until they're corrected. But for most people, I don't see it. I don't see how you could put a charge against him and the angels, I guess, because they all would be doing the Father's will and burning people forever too. So him and the angels and the Messiah, who condemns no man, who came to save that which was lost, who didn't come to destroy, forever. It's amazing. We're taught in the scriptures that the parents are supposed to correct their kids, teach them what's right, chastise them. But the Father won't do this. He will do something radically different. Why? Why is he a hypocrite? Please tell me. Show me in the scriptures where he's a hypocrite. It's not in there. It only comes out of blaspheming mouths and hearts. This is literally impossible. That parents should be doing these things because it's right, because it's loving to do that. But the Father won't. He'll do the exact radical opposite to all the disobedient children. That's why this creation is where it's at. Because of that. Because that gospel doesn't do anything. And that Trinity deity doesn't do anything for anyone. That's why for 2,000 years, spreading this false gospel, it hasn't done anything. That's why World War I and II happened and World War III is coming. Because that gospel didn't do jack. It didn't save anyone. It didn't help anyone out. It just made them prideful and religious, that's all. And to all those unbelievers out there, they can't believe such things because it's an abomination to them. My goodness, they might have a better heart than most Christians. Evolution wouldn't have came about like this if it wasn't for Christianity and their doctrine. Where are you supposed to turn? If someone already could see these other religions are definitely false, then you got, well, maybe Christianity's true. Then you examine it and you see that most of creation will be tormented with no end, without mercy, with no mercy forever. Find me the verse that says he has no mercy forever. Then Charles Darwin had to do and had to say what he did. He was a sad soul, tormented with no hope or life, and picturing his grandma, his grandparents, and sisters and brothers being tormented with no end. He said it's an abomination. This doctrine is an abomination. And he rightly said that. They kept him from the kingdom. They kept him from any kind of faith or belief. So then he had to do the best he could according to whatever, was given him, which is try to make evolution right, because it would simply be better just to prove that there's no creator and just die. That's better than being tortured with no end for all eternity. Who wouldn't want to prove evolution right? That's why he did that. And he even admitted, which they don't really teach anywhere, he admitted in that book that if they don't find the evidence, then this must not be true. Then it can't be true. If they don't find the millions and billions of fossils, then his theory must not be right. And they never did. So that had a big, huge factor and impact on his life, that souls will be tormented with no end. He thought about those things. That strongly inspired him to come out with that Not something new, but he just made it popular, I guess. He was the guy that kind of started it, made it popular for the whole world, the evolution theory. He wasn't the pioneer, really, but he made it popular because of people being tormented forever. That's why. That's why. And they just say, well, too bad. That's who he is. Interesting enough, the people that teach this, they have a lot of family members and a lot of people they love and care about, right? That are definitely not believers. Do they actually literally believe that they're going to be tortured with no end? How do you love someone if you actually believe that's coming for them, but it's not for you? Can't you see how that makes you extremely prideful? Oh, that's not coming for me, but it's coming for, I feel sorry for all these people. They're all going to, it doesn't even go through their mind that their own family members and their own friends and people they care about are going to be tortured forever with no end. How come they don't ever consider that? They don't actually think about these things. They don't even believe it themselves. They only believe it in their heads as their religion, as doctrine. Then they defend it. But, unless you've been given the gift of faith, you can't even believe that there is a God, that there is even a creator. These people don't even believe that there's a creator. They're the ones going on Google looking for proof for the creator, 20 years later, still going to church every week. They're looking for proof that the creator exists because they don't have the gift of faith. They only pretend to believe. They got in for wrong intentions, for wrong reasons, and to be esteemed by men, to be looked good on, so that everyone can think they're good and righteous and holy and perfect. And it elevates their pride, that's all. Everything is ruined when that belief is taught. When I see that, it's over. Unsubscribe, delete, see ya. You keep pumping out that truth, man, sorry. I don't care what else you say that might be right. That's evil. Something's wrong with the heart still if you believe that. It throws away everything, throws away all the scriptures, it throws away life, it throws away all meaning and all purpose. It throws away all teaching. I don't know how people can't see that. It throws everything into the garbage forever. I guess Paul was an evil, wicked man, according to them. He had a hope. He had a hope for the resurrection of the just and the unjust. What kind of sick person would hope that the resurrection of the unjust, that there's a resurrection for them? He's hoping that happens so that because then they'll be tortured forever. That would be your conclusion, right? That's why he was hoping for the resurrection of the unjust. So that, they can be judged and tortured with no end. That's what they imply. That's who they say Paul was. Yeah, he hoped for that because he hoped people, they can't say anything else. They can't say, no, he didn't hope that. Then why on earth was he hoping for the resurrection of the unjust? So that they don't burn? Assume that he did believe that. Assume that teaching's a fact. They're going to burn with no end. Why? So he hoped that they were resurrected. For what? What purpose? Oh, so they're burned forever, tortured. No, that's not what happened. That's not why he said that. On the contrary, the opposite is true. He had a hope for the resurrection of the unjust because he still has a hope for all people. And he's the one that wrote it more plainly than anyone else. They're not even parables, and people twist them and add. They constantly have to add words to what he says. If you believe, okay, find me that verse that says that. In Adam all die, so in Messiah all will be made alive. If you believe, in parentheses, in quotation mark, whatever. No, that's just a fact. They just can't. It's such a simple statement. They refuse to believe it. It's too good news. It's too much of a good news for them. That one man sinned and all died and all sin, and then the righteous act. One man did a righteous act, so all live and all don't sin anymore. That's too mind-numbing for them. No, here's the actual teaching that they teach. One man sinned, all die, and all sin and all die. Yeah, that's true. All means all there. And then in the same breath, the next all means very few. They butcher the scriptures. They butcher everything they touch. The same breath, the same verse. It's not even done breathing yet. That all means very few all of a sudden. Don't you know that people who add, take away, and twist the scriptures like that won't inherit the kingdom? You're going into judgment. Yeah, they will. They will go into judgment for doing that. That's a command not to add or take away anything. It's in the Torah, it's in Revelation, it's elsewhere. Don't mess with his word. So those that say, in Adam all die, so in Christ and Messiah all made alive, believers, obviously, that you just added what's not in there. You can't do that. You're not going to be in the kingdom. Sorry. And I'm glad you won't, honestly. You deserve judgment for perverting the whole entire message and teaching lies and adding like that. It's a righteous thing to want righteous judgment that comes from the Father. Those people don't deserve to inherit the kingdom by butchering the scriptures and teaching false lies, doctrines of demons. What is a doctrine of demons? Good news? That's a doctrine of demons. Preach the good news to all people. That's what they say it is. They twist it. They twist the good into being a doctrine of demons. If you're not teaching that people are being tortured for eternity, that's a doctrine of demons. No, those doctrine of demons he's talking about are those Jewish myths and fables and doctrines of demons that demons came up with, that the devil inspired people to come up with, to trash the Almighty Creator, to trash his character. How can't you see that? People who don't believe this, don't believe the true gospel. They can't see that this came from the enemy to make the Father look like a monster, a never-ending torturer. That's a doctrine of demons. Those who teach doctrines of demons aren't going to inherit the kingdom. Read the scriptures. People who teach doctrine of demons aren't exactly thought of as very highly. The judgment's waiting for them. You're not supposed to be doing that. It says to beware, watch out for these kind of people. Unbelievable, man. What doesn't that doctrine ruin? Nothing. The whole purpose of life is ruined because of that crazy, insane fear that the Egyptians came up with, that all the nations came up with and got together and started spreading this so that they can control people, and they even admit it, and you can find proof of this. They even admit that they created these nasty doctrines so that they can control the citizens and make them more obedient slaves so they can get their work done. That's why that came through. That's why the devil came up with that. For even a evil intention such as just controlling people so that they can manipulate them and put them in fear and do these kind of things, to get some kind of production done or whatever it is they want done. They created that. They admit that they did that. That's why they came up with that. It's not some unique thing that Christianity taught. They taught this damnable heresy long ago, long before Christianity came. They had the Egyptian hell, the Greek hell, the Babylonian hell, the Assyrian hell, the Jewish hell, the Christian hell, the Buddhist hell, the Hinduist hell. Everyone's got their hell. And since the whole world is deceived and all their teaching in the whole entire world is deceived, why is that not even put into question? It's not even questioned by anyone. The whole world believes this. All religions believe this. They always have. They always will, you know. It's not even questioned. I thought Satan deceives the whole world. So what man teaches, his majority teaching and doctrine is true? Oh, okay. I guess the world's not deceived at all. My experience in seeking truth is that every truth I've learned, the church world teaches something different. And I'm not even remotely being dishonest or what's the word? Exaggerating. No, like literally everything they believe I disagree with. Virtually all of it. They don't even believe the Messiah died. You know, they don't even believe he died when he says I was dead. No, I was alive. That's what it means. When he died, he was still alive. His immortal soul was floating around and stuff, going underground in hell and preaching to spirits in prison. That's why some of those harder verses are in there, just to trip people up and come up with doctrine of demons. He always leaves room for that. And it makes me angry sometimes that was done. They miss key words. They miss everything, you know. They miss the fact that it says he was alive in the spirit, quickened in the spirit. Then he went to do this work, teach the spirits in the prisons. He wasn't dead doing this, but they ignore it. They ignore verses in Isaiah that talk about spirits in the prisons, the captives being in the prisons, you know. This is being enslaved to sin. He preached to people and took them out of captivity, out of their sin. That's what you're being freed from the prison, sin. What do they teach? Oh, underground in some burning inferno with chains and ball and chains and literal prison and spirits in there and stuff floating around. That's what he did when he was dead. Well, wasn't he alive then? Well, I guess. Yeah, so you don't believe in the death and resurrection of the Messiah. Well, not really, because he was alive and not... Yeah, you don't, heretic. You don't even believe in the foundation of the gospel, death and resurrection. They don't believe he died. Ask any Christian, was he dead when he was dead? Was he still alive when he was dead? Well, oh yeah, he was alive. So they don't believe it. They don't believe in anything. Not a single doctrine they teach is right or true. They don't believe that people sleep, that the dead know absolutely nothing. No, they know everything. In fact, they know more than when you're alive in the flesh. Now you're alive in the immortal soul. Just going around. They believe in ghosts. The King James Version, you know, the translators, they think that translation is absolute perfection. Ghost is not the set apart spirit. Has nothing to do with ghosts. Stupid. Because they believed in ghosts. They believed in these myths and all these things. That's why they translated it ghosts most of the time. Because the translators were heretics. And granted that through the evil, they still put out a decent translation for the time. You know, it's not a garbage translation, but what on earth is Holy Ghost? Should be ashamed for even mentioning it ever, that I got the Holy Ghost in me. Yeah, you probably got Kundalini devil spirits in you, if you think you have ghosts in you. That word doesn't even resemble ghost, the Greek word. So how did they come up with it? Biased? Because they believed in some other strange, weird doctrines? That's why. That's why they came up with that. That's why they translated Passover as Easter one time. Because they're pagans. They believed in the Easter bunny and this Isis or whatever rabbit god having sex and laying eggs everywhere. Demons, you know. Pagan nonsense. That's why they translated it Easter one time, to get their doctrine in there. Yeah, Easter Sunday, Easter whatever. Has nothing to do with the truth. That word should be Passover, and it's translated like that like 30 other times. But one time it's Easter. And there's all kinds of examples. Why don't you do a Google search and see all the pagan stuff in the King James translation? And not just that one. You know, the Bibles have been infected through translation, virtually all of them, you know. There are a few out there that try to get rid of all this stuff, pagan names and pagan things like this. And there's all kinds of other problems. And the translators knew that forever doesn't mean forever there. That Greek word doesn't mean forever, but they translated it forever anyways. Why? To keep their doctrine of hell, so they can preach on it. So that they can say everlasting and forever. That word seals the deal. It says forever. Well, it must mean forever. Yeah. They didn't translate it honestly. And I'm pretty sure that 50 translators, or however many there were, and many of them knew different languages, and they knew Hebrew, and they knew, you know, their combined knowledge of language. They knew that word didn't mean forever, but they did it anyways, just like they translated Easter. They knew without a doubt it's not Easter. They even translated it 30 other times as Passover. So also they knew that it doesn't mean forever. But we got Bible translations everywhere. And how come the ones that don't have these words in there, that actually have it translated properly, they exist? How come they're not popular? How come they're not used in mainstream Christianity? Because that's how the devil works. Everything he does is evil. You know, it's a majority rules spirit. The majority of translations translate it like that. It must mean forever. Oh, okay. That's based on the fact that you don't believe that Satan deceives the whole world. Okay, this is just another deception from Satan. Translating one word and creating a whole entire evil doctrine based off of one stinking word. If it didn't say that, then they would at least look into these passages and look into the meaning in words. But no, when it says forever, they don't even look into it. It's forever. Done. That's why the King James only people that only, you know, I don't care if people use King James Version, but the onlyers, the hardcore onlyers, the reason that they do that is because they want to keep certain doctrines, and they know, and the devil spirits in them know that if you start exposing some of the translation problems, that their doctrines go away. So they gotta, I'm a Bible believing King James person only, and if you don't believe in this, you're a devil and a demon and you don't believe. That's literally their spirit. All of them. Every single one that says that you're a heretic and delusional unbeliever if you don't believe King James only. Then they never answer, what was the only Bible 1,500 years before it? Oh, I don't know. Who knows? I guess it would have been the Latin one that was in the Catholic Church system for 1,000-something years. Pretty silly, isn't it? All kinds of problems, all kinds of evil in this world that, you know, I guess maybe some of it's being exposed, but I don't know. It's going to just be too little, too late, because what's going to happen is the devil's not going to allow it to happen. That's what. And ultimately the Father doesn't allow, you know. When the truth starts coming out and more people are understanding truth, then World War III is going to come. Then it's just going to be sudden crazy destruction everywhere, because that's the only way to stop it. It's the only way to stop it. You think the world leaders are going to allow truth to continue to spread through YouTube and through other means, spreading the truth about the Father and the kingdom and truth, and that he does exist, and everything they teach in school is a lie? How long do you think they're going to put up with that before something major happens? That's my question. How long do you think that the devils in this, that you lead in this world, are going to allow that to go on without some kind of pushback. What do you think Corona is for? This is just the beginning. This is just the beginning of shutting up the truth. Watch it. Watch and see how they work to shut it up and close it up and kill it. That's why it's going to be a bloodbath. And the Father even allows it. He gives them power over the saints to overcome the saints. He allows it to happen. They're going to do it. They're going to overpower the truth. They're going to overpower everything. It's going to be an ugly bloodbath in the end. You know, that's why I feel sorry for people who, oh, you know, the whole world's receiving truth. We're going to take over the world with truth. It's not happening. They don't have the right perspective. They don't understand prophecy or how the devil works. That's good. Spread the truth. Yeah, do that. But just understand what's going to happen because of it. Understand that the elite don't want to be overthrown with truth because truth would overthrow them. And I don't know how much worse it has to get. You know, how far away is this? I'm not sure. Maybe it still is decades away. Could be. It doesn't seem too far. I mean, the corruption seems to be escalating, you know, exponentially. And that's usually what happens. That's what happens when every nation gets corrupt, when the next thing is, you know, they'll teach kids to put condoms on when you sleep with a sheep. That's where it's going. It's not going to stop. It's not going to stop. The next thing they're going to teach is bestiality. They're going to go hardcore. Every single commandment, every single filthy abomination thing that they could break, they're going to do that and teach it. So that's some of what I think we need to see to truly be close, really close to the end. We have to start seeing some really sick, perverted stuff going on. But I think it's in the middle of, that's already in the middle. It's working already. It's already happening. And with the education system now and with technology now, these things can escalate pretty quick, a lot quicker than if something took 50 years back in the day or 100 years. You know, we can do it in 5 years. We can get this country just absolutely perverted in just a few short years. So it's just going to get worse and worse. It's not getting better. Look at some video footage from 60, 70 years ago and then compare it to today. Just that alone should give you a hint. It's totally corrupt. We call this evil, corruption. We see someone brutally torturing someone, right? Or hear of it, or somebody did that, tortured someone slowly before he finally died. That we call that a nasty, evil, unimaginable evil. But the Father will do this with no end forever to all the disobedient children that ever lived. And all the righteous people, they're going to have a great reason to boast. They're going to say, I chose him, right? That's what they're going to be able to say. I chose him. I'm better than that person. I'm glad I'm not like that sinner burning in hell. Isn't that the spirit they all have? Warns you of not to be like that. People who are like that won't be justified. Yeah, be careful about thinking you're so prideful and self-righteous that I'm good. I'm not burning like that person's going to hell. That's condemned. You can't do that. You can't have that kind of heart. With that, I'm going to end. Peace. Take care. Don't torture anybody. Don't stand for torture. People who torture people are evil. People who torture people endlessly are endlessly evil. Therefore, the Trinity deity is evil with no end.